I want to say it one more time harshly. Nobody owes you friendship.
Yeah.
To tie it back to what we said at the beginning, you know how to be a good friend in the context of your cultural setting. I know how to be a good friend the German way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do everything and I'm being such a good friend and I'm always doing all the things that were a proven recipe for me, the German way in Germany, but they don't work in a different country. And then I get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but I'm being such a good person and none of them are reacting. It can feel like rejection just simply because they have the different value system. Nobody owes you friendship.
Why are so many of us struggling to make friends in adulthood? This season, we're getting real about what it takes to build friendships that don't just fill up a contact list, but actually add meaning to our lives. We're here to bust the myth that friendships just happen on their own. Making friends, real, lasting friends, is a skill that you can develop. So get ready to be better at being a great friend and to enjoy every level of the wealth it brings. Better health, more joy, more success, and a deeper sense of belonging. This is a space for anyone who doesn't want to just talk about being a good friend or being a great citizen, but actually wants to live it and show up with integrity. Are you ready to dive in? Let's make it happen, one episode at a time.
Hello and welcome back to the Worth Having podcast. You're listening to Natalia Shishka. Hi,
Hello.
Natalia. Hi. And Nicole Schultisik. Guys, if you're here for the first time, this season we're talking about friendships. In this episode, we're talking about friendships from the expat or immigrant perspective. And this is important. And it's especially important to us because both of us, Natalia and I, we are expats. Natalia, do you want to tell the people, where are we? Where do you come from?
Sure. By the way, I had this reflection now. I know if I should before that our names and surnames, they start with the same letters,
Yes,
yeah?
NS.
So that's funny. Side note. Yeah, so we are recording in Malmö, Sweden, and I moved here from Poland, which is my homeland, around 5 years ago because of work, and I moved here alone, on my own, which I believe makes a huge difference if you move with a partner or if you move alone. And throughout these 5 years, I built more than once a group of friends. I live now with my partner, but for many years, the friends were, my only closest relations here, living abroad. So I guess it comes with a lot of challenges and it will be very interesting to talk about it today. And what about you, Nick? Your story is richer than mine.
Mine is a bit more complex, but first of all, if you hear this whining in the background, I came with my puppy, so don't worry. She's just wanting attention.
She's been walked just before the pod, so
yes.
Animals are harmed.
Yes, there is no emotional cruelty happening here, even though it might sound different. Anyways, I'm Nick Schultisik. I was born and raised in Germany, but my parents have been immigrants from Poland as well.
So you're in the second generation also of immigrants, yeah?
Yes, second generation. And yeah. I mean, if you take my family's history, they're from the part of Poland that used to be Germany. So even though they didn't move, they had to have an identity change because my grandparents were born German and became Polish. Oh, wow. My parents were born Polish and became German. Anyways, I'm also living in Malmö, Sweden, but this is my 7th country. And I have done all the stages. I have done the au pair experience right after high school as a more or less teenager. I have done the move for university in my 20s, for work first and then for university in my 20s by myself. I have done the move with a partner, my now husband, and I've also moved already twice with our 2 kids. So we have the whole family experience of moving everybody and being in charge of somebody else's well-being. And when I sat down to prepare this episode, I had this really strange sensation. As in, for the first time in my life, I felt very disconnected to this because this has been the story of my life, moving. And now that we're supposed to talk about it, and I've talked about it many, many times, I was like, yeah, but what is it like in this phase that I'm in right now? I'm so desperate to get beyond this expert experience
and not to feel
become
like
a local.
yes. Yeah.
That I've been focusing these last 3 years on overcoming this because I want to make this my last country. And then also leaving these cliche expat experience behind me because I have been so many times through it.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you are here and you can give the other perspective.
Yes, maybe a bit fresh and I understand that hearing your story, it can totally feel cliche. It's a 7th country. How much more can you do? Yeah. And experience the same circle of maybe emotions and all that. So I totally get it. And at the same time, thinking about me and many of my friends who moved, I'm feeling like, especially the beginning phase of being an expat, it's truly difficult. Like, it is never a cliche for someone who does it for the first time or second or third. So I feel it's so real what we talk about, even though you say you're a bit further, but you still lived that part also. So I believe there is still a place for us to share.
Yes. And for you, listener, just be assured wherever you are on your journey, if it's your first or your 5th time, you've got us both here.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, it can be both ways because you can be the ones having this immigrant or expat experience, or you can have friends with this experience or partners. So, just, you know, I guess it can be interesting for anyone, or maybe you are considering changing a country, and that can be very helpful. Because I remember I had this moment when I was still in Poland. I went through a breakup and I lost some of my friends. And I managed to rebuild in Poland my friends group. And then I remember I had this moment, I was like, no, this is not the moment for me to change the country because I don't have the energy to do it again. And here I am. So many things can happen in life.
Yes. And for you, listener, one more time. So Natalia, she's a psychologist and psychotherapist. I am a designer and I have a history of working with a lot of expats, especially those who have been for 5 or 10 years in a country, have established themselves, maybe have a partner that is local. Your partner is now also Swedish, right? Have built a family and then realize I'm living this Swedish life, this Swiss life, this French life, wherever you are located. But where is me and my culture and what am I giving to my kids? Like they're living this, you know, Swiss or Swedish life. But what about my Nicaraguan, oh God, it's hard, but I should have chosen Colombian, okay? My Colombian roots, my German roots, my American roots. Like, how do you integrate that? So I worked with a lot of people of privilege, financial privilege, that they could afford a designer. And it was a thing of, I need to make my home feel more like a cultural identity or more of a mix, because I'm living in this, before that I was Swiss, like in the Swiss Alps with this Swiss view in this Swiss house with this Swiss furniture, and nothing reminds or teaches my kids of what it's like to live in my country. Yeah, it is a very, very interesting struggle, I would say. Some of my clients are also expats or immigrants, and they often found themselves to hang out with other Poles, or other people of their nationality. And I remember also the same realization as your clients had, Nick, I had. When I moved here, my first thought was that, of course, I will hang out only with international people because I am so international. And I was working for an international corporation then. And I felt so, you know, that's how it's going to be. I don't need Polish people there. I have my Polish friends in Poland. And after a few months, I really understood that I need to have people from my nationality around me. I need to speak my language. I need to be able to celebrate my holidays from my country. So I guess it is very, very individual journey. So I have written down 5 points that are basically the cliches that come up for every expat. It doesn't matter where you're from.
Cliches, or can we call them truths?
Yeah, but I want to be so harsh and call it a cliche, because a cliche means once somebody calls you a cliche, it feels like an aggression. But if you can just take this on and say, like, you're not the only one. So many people have been there before. And then you're like, shit, man, I am a cliche. How do I become not a cliche? What do I need to do to not be this? So for me, there's always help, like, oh, don't tell me, who I am or what I'm not. Like, I want to decide for myself. So sometimes if you're being called a name, however lovingly, is getting you to, you know what? I don't want to be that. And I'm going to actively do something against it. Anyways, the first point, so again, it's 5 points that I would, hopefully we get to touch in this episode. The first is the grief. That is the core of the unspoken loneliness experience. And I wrote years ago an article saying, you are not depressed. You're only grieving the life that you chose not to live. Because a lot of expats, those that get recruited, those that go abroad to make a career, on paper, they have it all. And then they still feel sad. And it's like, okay, maybe there's something wrong with me. And I shouldn't feel that sad because I do have the career. I do have the better income. I do have this vibrant, quote unquote, vibrant life that none of my friends or family have back at home. Maybe it's something with me. And it is something with you, but it's not that you're depressed. It's just, we also need to acknowledge that however great your life is, it's also hard.
Yeah, and of course, I would argue, because there are some research that proves that first depression often happens the second people leave home, be it for the university or for the to change the country. But we don't have to agree on fully. And I guess the reason behind it is because if you want to admit it or not, yes, you are losing your connection. You are being, in a way, like you suddenly find yourself away from your family and friends. And no matter if you liked or disliked your life in your country of origin or in your homeland, it is a huge, huge change. So it can really, and you can feel for the first time in your life that you are on your own. So it can cause tremendous changes inside you, and it's very normal to feel lonely, to feel afraid, to feel insecure, because you cannot just, walk to streets and meet your friend or your mom. So I guess the purpose of our podcast today is also really not to underestimate this huge change, even though it's so normalized, as you said, and it's like, it is just a success. No, it's much more than that.
And there's some things that are obvious, right? It's obvious that when you come to a new country, first it's the honeymoon phase, everything is exciting and you're discovering things. And then a few weeks, a few months, whatever the time span for you, the same things will all of a sudden feel heavy. Like the amount of having to go to the grocery shop and not finding the products that you're used to, or still not be able to read the labels. I mean, depending on where you move to, you might not be able to read. Like if you move to Turkey or to some Asian or Arabic speaking country, or you come from this country and then, right?
Yeah, exchanging the prices all the time to your country currency. Yes. How heavy it is for your brain every day.
Yes. So there is this psychological heaviness of constantly. We also speak often in the couples relationship, right? The mental load that the woman is carrying. It's the same kind of mental load that then all of a sudden also men feel, because it's like everything is different. And it's this constant alertness that you have to spend energy on.
Exactly. The simplest things like finding the grocery store you like, walking to the bus, going to work. Everything is new. Nothing is automized, and your brain is really, really overloaded.
Yes. And the other aspect is, after some time, we realize that I shouldn't have brought the puppy.
I'm happy you brought her.
No, you realize just very simple things, that wherever you are from, you know what it's like, for example, to grow up and grow old in your country, because you have parents, your parents have friends, you have grandparents, your grandparents' society. So you know that somebody from your social stand, with your education, with this circle of friends, can expect to grow into that kind of person. And when you are an expat, it depends on if you are the one who has a job or doesn't have a job. That's a thing, right? But let's say you are the one who's coming and has a job. You only most likely see people who are immediate. So your work colleagues like you, even if there's an age gap, like you have the same, it's this little bubble and you have a very limited insight of what the whole range of, so for us right now, growing old in Sweden or growing up, growing more fully into you looks like.
Yeah.
And you can't predict that. And it's whatever you found boring in your life. Oh, this is so typically, so I might guess German. Oh, the Germans are like that. It becomes like this predictability is a sort of reliability, is a sort of trust, is a sort of stability. Like, oh,
I know how it works.
Predict of where I will end up if I don't screw up completely, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you say that it's something we are lacking when we move to.
Exactly. And it's just taxing. It's just taxing. So there's the grief part.
For me, very interesting part about this talking about friends and expat life is this very, very fast closeness that can be very misleading. And I can tell you that especially as a person who moved single to another country, because then by default you meet a lot of other expats and they are often also single. And we all find ourselves in this strange situation in our life when sometimes we are, 30 plus, 40 plus, different ages, where other people often have families, not always, but that can be the case. But we are on our own in a foreign country and we don't have so many responsibilities. We don't have established life. We have free weekends, free afternoons. So it is so easy to start meeting with people because everyone is lonely. Everyone is craving connection. But the problem is that it can create this sense of fake intimacy. And for me, I don't know how it is for you, Nick, but for me, it was very interesting, especially during COVID times, and especially when it comes to holidays and Christmas and New Year's and Easter and whatever holidays you're celebrating, because you can suddenly find yourself that you celebrate these traditionally very family-oriented holidays with people who are almost strangers. And you feel like, oh, we are this big family now because we share it. But this is not exactly the case because expats come and leave, have some friends and have another friends. And my own personal experience is that when I moved to Sweden, I celebrated my 32nd birthday here with a group of people. And 4 years later, none of these people are in my life at all.
Yes. Yes. Bringing this all back to friendship. We've said it in a different episode that it's research proven that on average, every 7 years, the people who are in your inner circle will not be in your inner circle. They will still be in your universe, but they will not be in your immediate, solar system. I don't know what to say, right? They will not be very close. And again, like I'm having so many conversations right now about friendship, and I realize so often that I have a very unique point of view of friendship. So many people talk about these friends for life, right? The people that share your life in the sense of they see you grow up, they see the person that you've become, they know you from different phases of your life. I've never had that. I moved a lot as a child. I had to make friends fast. And I literally do not know what it's like to have someone else that knew me from a different phase of my life now. So I had the experience a year and a half ago for the first time where somebody that I met in Australia actually lives here in Sweden, and we reconnected when I moved. And somebody who knew me 17 years ago would come to my housewarming party and meet other people, like, for example, my husband, who's known me for 10, 12 years, with another friend who's known me from another time of my life. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, this is such a bizarre sensation that somebody who knew me when I was single and 20 years younger and still in uni will meet somebody who met me when I met my husband, who will now meet my kids. That was, for me, that was very strange. And this sensation of having friends for life and this continuous, right? That is weird for me, but that is what a lot of people understand and makes them then sad about when we talk about in the 4 to 7 years, your people will be gone. They will not be in your inner circle. But I thought they're going to be my people forever.
Yeah. But would you say that because of your experience, you don't have, let's say, difficulties with what I said before, that you meet people, you become quickly intimate, and then after 6 months, 1 year, it can change. Is that natural for how is it for you?
I have this conversation just yesterday with somebody else. No, 6 months, a year, that would be short. Mm-hmm. But I'm totally okay. Like if in like 2 to 3 years, people are not, it doesn't make the friendship bad. Or I don't look with a sad heart, a grieving heart that the people are gone. I tend to be like, man, that was really cool. I was in that life and that was intense. And probably if I would meet them again now, we will have the proximity of them again living close to me. That would be cool. But I think I have more of an appreciation for this intensity and short time span than saying like, oh, this was so cool, but now it's gone and I'll be grieving and sad about it. It doesn't make me sad.
Okay. And I think maybe because it doesn't surprise you because you know this is how it is.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing for many people, at least for me, it was a huge surprise that this is how it is in this expat situation, that if you're very lucky, you can find someone who will stay your friend. And I was lucky after 5 years to have people that are with me for several years now. But there are also many who just come and go. And I think it's so important just to have this understanding when you start building connections as an immigrant in a new country, because then you do it very widely. You can invest a lot of energy and time. And these people can really, stay for one Christmas and then never appear again.
But we also need to say that it would be most likely exactly the same thing, even if you stayed in your home country, because if you would have stayed, you went through a breakup, another friend could have had a kid, the other one would have like, I don't know, an accident, or their parents
or
all of a sudden
would move to another country.
Or they would move, right? And then like it would have still changed, but it wouldn't feel so disruptive and destabilizing because your surroundings, because everything else is so stable. You know how to be a Polish person in Poland, and that would be.
Or because friendships you build in your home country, you build slower because you have time, especially maybe when you are younger. It's just, maybe it's a bit more organic. While when you move and you suddenly find yourself, alone or with a very small group of people, you want to make many connections and fast. And I think this is the difference between this expat friendships and this, expat friendships, that we do it fast, we do it intense, we spend a lot of time together. And then after 6 months or a year or two, it's gone, but it was going so fast. While I guess, you might disagree with me, but I have a feeling that other friendships in my life, not expat friendships, were built much slower.
Again, I don't know. Like I have a different life. Yes. This is my whole life, so I have nothing to compare this to.
But then let's leave it as my experience.
But maybe just to round this topic of grief up, acknowledge that you're grieving, that it is sad. And no matter how excited you were about moving abroad, this is hard, right? This is really hard. And you're craving, for the lack of better words, predictability means you lack a little bit of boredom, right? Of not having to think about how everything works constantly. Just this mental ease. And I think that's where we can do now I want to speak Swedish now, återkoppling. Going back to another episode, what can really help, I think, is when you are grieving and you are so fed up with the locals, wherever you are, and these people are and you can get really frustrated about it. And it's just normal then to project that on the other people who are not your people. Go out in nature. Let's go back. We recorded an episode about ecotherapy because nature is nature. Nature has nothing to do with humans. Leave the city, because even the architecture can remind you in your city that you are not from here and things are being built different and the pace of life might be, and everything might be contributing to your inner frustration or slight aggression or whatever you're feeling, right? This negativity of like, ugh, here. Everything is about Switzerland, Sweden, Germany, wherever you are located right now.
Yeah, while in nature, this cycles, natural cycles are usually the same, no matter where you are. Usually, when you are out of the city, you are still able to observe a bit change of the seasons, no matter where you are, like geographically. And even if, the fauna or flora are different, you can still find some similarities.
A mountain is a mountain, a tree is a tree. The tree doesn't give a crap if it has been planted.
That
it will
can
grow
be a
the way it
stability.
wants to, right? It's just this, a little bit anarchy against culture, and everything has to be in a certain way. So, yeah.
And maybe last words, just if you go, come prepared. Like, be prepared that it might be difficult, that people you meet now might not be for very long. And I guess it also can help to avoid a lot of disappointments.
Yeah. And be okay with that. It's okay to really like people now that might be not in your life a year from now. Point number 2. I want to talk about identity disruption and having to rebuild yourself in a different country. Who am I outside of the context in which I grew up? And especially when we talk about friendships, I grew up in Germany. I know how to be a friend, a good friend, the German way. And to every national cliche, there is a truth of grain. So Germans are very direct. Germans are very in your face and maybe unfiltered. And then in Sweden, for example, it's not done like that.
No.
And what is a good thing or is expected as a good friend, you point things out and you are very direct, might be very aggressive here.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, she's okay. But then when she comes too close and we're
I
too
feel a bit
friendly,
violated. Yeah,
exactly.
It's so interesting that you brought this up. I have a lot of reflections, but maybe you didn't finish your intro, so I will let you.
No, it's just, on the one hand, it's really normal when you are an expat. It doesn't matter if you come alone or with your family. Because believe me coming with a husband and 2 kids still can feel lonely because my husband goes to work, my kids go to school, and I still have to tend to myself, right? So yes, of course, you will be alone or with less friends for a while because you need to meet the people. But then you might have an expectation. If I would have just moved from city A to city B within my own country, yes, it would obviously also take time. But it would be a lot faster than it's here.
I know how it works. Yeah.
I know how it works. I know how to speak the language. I know what the cultural norms are, what is
how you send the signs that I want to be friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, you are so right. And we assume we know because of course it must work the same way. If it's obvious for me, it has to be obvious for the other person. You couldn't be further from truth.
Yes.
And even this short distance between Poland and Sweden, for example, it is just 1 sea away. We had a shared history and all that. It could have not been more different in how you make friends. And now I am studying Swedish, or also studying Swedish intensively. And part of my Swedish course is this whole cultural education.
Yes.
And, I thought I knew it. But I am after 5 years. And, I thought I was reading books and articles and really being interested in this country culture. No, I didn't know the basics. So now I know, now I understand. For example, Sweden is so based on this individual relations and the assumption that it's country, not other country members or other citizens that are helping you. So you count on country, you pay high taxes, but you expect good school, good elderly care, all of that. While in the communism, which used to be history, for example, for Poland, you couldn't have count on the country. So you had to help each other. So expectations towards friends were much higher, how much you can do. And if you don't know it, when you move to another country, you can really fall in a trap.
I remember growing up like that. So my parents grew up, again, in Poland under Russian occupation and communism. and nobody had anything. And the moment you had something, you would share it with everyone, simply because next time it might be you that might not have anything.
And you had to help each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember I had this conversation. Me and my husband, we love to cook and we love to invite people for dinner. And we have this Swedish couple who then invited us over, and they were constantly apologizing. It's like, but you can't expect, like, we're not so into cooking, and we're not this, like, they were upfront before we even had the dinner, already apologizing that we're quote unquote not on the same level. And I felt like, I think I need to teach them quote unquote a lesson. So I brought smallets, bread,
grease.
Yes, pork or goose.
Pork grease, I guess.
Or goose grease. My family would be goose grease, right? So grease, salt, bread, and pickles. Pickled cucumbers. And I would come and it's like, we're going to do this as an apéro because that's how I grew up. My parents telling me this is a party.
Yeah.
Just having bread, some butter, some grease on top, salt. And that's like the moment you have everybody, like, I bring the pickles, you bring the butter, you bring the bread. And that's a reason to share and to be together. So I wanted to show them, like, we don't come here for the food. We come here for the company.
Yeah. And it's also such a symbol of hospitality, what you just said. Hospitality or hospitality? Hospitality, yeah.
That's one point. Another point when we talk about identity disruption is when you move and you've been in your home country, you had all this variety of social roles. You've been a friend, but you've been a colleague, you've been a daughter, you've been an employee,
auntie,
you've been a student, like you have all these roles. Then you move and maybe you have a job, so you can be the employee, but maybe you don't even have that one, right?
Then
I came as a +1.
The immigrant. Yeah.
Then you're just the immigrant. A role that you haven't been before, and then B, all you're looking for is friends. And that's the only role that you can currently play.
Yeah, you can.
Because you're not a daughter, you're not whatever. Like all these other roles fall away. And you're putting so much emphasis on the fact of like, I need to find my tribe. I need to find.
Yeah, I need to
and
connect.
You only look for the people. So in my case, obviously, it would be like, I have kids that go to school. I want to meet other parents. That's the easiest, right? Other parents that my kids go to school with. That's the first thing you look at. So I will not go and look for somebody who's 20 years older who can be my mother or grandmother role, like this relationship, right? That's not what we do. You look for friends, and then it becomes so heavy making friends because A, it was easier in your home country. B, you had all the other roles to play.
Yeah,
you could be all the other people.
Now that's your main focus, and whatever else you would do, by definition, will just feel more lonely, yeah? Going to cinema alone as an immigrant, especially in the beginning, I'm guessing is much heavier than doing the same thing in your home country. And I remember the panic I had the first weekend I had in Sweden, alone. And I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? It's a whole weekend. I'm here alone. And my best friends from Poland, they had to, help, like pump me up and say, it's okay, you're gonna find friends. And, a few weeks later, it was a totally different situation. But I remember this dread. What am I gonna do with my free time?
Yes, because that's also another role, right? You used to go to work and you used to look forward to the weekend.
Yeah.
Now you go to work.
That's a good
and you
part.
like going to work. And then it's like free time and you have nothing to do. And then like that might be that might be weird, right?
Yeah. I remember it was super scary.
Yeah. And then also, so when you then move and you have this free time, and it's this free time that used to be for socializing, but you are not socializing because you don't have the friends. What do you do with yourself all the time? Right? You might need to dig a little bit deeper in who you are and what you like and what you can do. And where's the line between, solitude and I'm enjoying this, and lonely, I don't know what to do with myself and I have nobody.
Yeah. And it might be that you really, really don't want to be closer to yourself. And then you compulsively start going out and making these shallow connections that can be a disappointment. So I guess you can really get quite lost in this whole building a community, building a friendship group in expat.
I remember sitting last time, like months ago, she told me a story, and I don't know if you remember, but there was this French woman, and then somebody said something, you can just learn to sit with yourself, and was presenting it as something good. And then she raised her hand and it's like, I hear you, and I think it's great that you can do that, but for me, this is...
It's not an option.
It's not an option. It feels really heavy and suffocating, this lonely, and I have to bear myself.
Yeah, it is so true. Should we say what this she told me a story?
Yes, she told me a story is a gathering that we go to. It happens in Malmö every month. If you want to know more about it, go back to season 5 because I interviewed a whole lot of women that I met through She Told Me a Story.
We can link to this episode.
Absolutely.
But I would say that is a beautiful example of a cure against loneliness while being an expat. Established community.
So my question to you as a psychotherapist would be now, how can self-compassion help a person to reframe this identity crisis when they realize, damn, I don't know who I am for myself, to myself, by myself?
I would say even listening from the beginning of this podcast can help because we were talking a lot about there are many obvious challenges and difficulties while you move to another country. So just acknowledge that. Don't expect too much from yourself. It is hard. The change is hard. The move is hard. If you move for work, finding yourself in a job situation is hard. If you move for love, finding yourself in your partner family is hard. If you move alone without job or partner, this is hard enough. So don't push yourself too much on finding friends. And I had this reflection that we perceive this finding a friends or community as such a huge success. Yeah, like, oh, well done. Look at you.
Yes.
You had
I
something
have a friend
to
now,
do.
I'm done. Yes.
Wow. How fast you built your friendship group. But maybe this is not fast for you. So give yourself a time and look for some safe places. It's 100% certain that there are other people like you in this place that you moved. So I would just say, give yourself time and don't push yourself to do things that don't feel natural. So if you don't like sitting home alone, go for a free walking tour. This is what I did the first Saturday I moved to Malmö. So take yourself for a walk.
Date yourself.
Yeah. But do it in a really, really calm way. And then just try to do things that you like in your country of origin. For me, it was hiking. And actually, I met all of my friends here in Sweden through hiking. So just maybe that's a beautiful way to remind yourself who you are. Remember what was bringing you joy before you moved and try to do it again. I guess this is a really great place to start.
I want to now switch a little bit. I think I should have said that at the very beginning. The problem with just having expat friends for me is that this, as quickly and as nice this can feel to meet other people that don't have the same experience and like, finally somebody who understands me. There is a certain fakeness to it. Because you might not share actually the same values with these people and you just feel this resonance because the situation is the same. And what I've noticed in every country that I've met, if you hang out too much with expats, there is always this subgroup of people who hate to be othered by the locals, but then other the locals themselves. So it's like, these Swedes, these Swiss, these Americans, right? That's what happened. I grew up like that. My parents did that. When we were in Germany, they were not German. It was like, these Germans. And then the moment we would visit the family in Poland, you Polish. I'm like, wait.
So who are we?
Wait, then who are you? Because when we're back home, you are not German, you're Polish. But then when we're in Poland and you're not Polish because they are Polish and you're not them. It's a recipe for unhappiness.
For never, ever, becoming a part.
Finding something that annoys you. Yeah. And if you're in this phase of feeling frustrated and feeling angry, and it's also normal to say these words, these fucking Swedes, these fucking Swiss, bloody French, stupid Americans, wherever you are, it's okay. But I want to say it again one more time harshly. Nobody owes you friendship.
Yeah.
To tie it back to what we said at the beginning, you know how to be a good friend in the context of your cultural setting. I know how to be a good friend the German way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do everything and I'm being such a good friend and I'm always doing all the things that were a proven recipe for me, the German way in Germany, but they don't work in a different country. And then I get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but I'm being such a good person and none of them are reacting. And it can feel like rejection just simply because they don't know how to realize, or they don't, they have the different value system. Nobody owes you, because if you imagine yourself being in your busy life back in your country,
having
in a
all
career,
the friends,
with your established friends, with your kids, with this blah 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 in sport, how many? And I asked my sister that. I had an episode with my sister who has this beautiful group of friends back in Germany, and I asked her, how many of your core group have a name that you cannot pronounce? My sister turned pale. How many of these beautiful group of friends have an accent, a German that doesn't sound like yours? Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And this is what I feel, especially with the background that for me in Germany, just the re-election of the government has happened. And as in any country, there was a raise in the amount of people who voted right. And there was also this beautiful uprise in people who went to vote, like over 80% of the population went to counteract that, right? To counteract that, and voted center or center left. Mm-hmm. And I realized all my people and my sister's people, we are social democrats. Mm-hmm. We are center left or even left. And we do support all these, integrate people, let them come, let them enjoy the benefits of living a German life because it is a beautiful way and it helps them, right? It's an improvement for wherever they come from. They don't come for no reason, and they want to do their best because I know that I here in Sweden want to do my best. And it's one thing to be for the system and like theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
And
declaratively value-based, yes, you are.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you have this beautiful group, let's say a core group of 10, a wider circle of 20, you always meet 3 times per year. How often do you bring somebody in who has a name that you cannot pronounce, that has an accent? And it's like, you know what, but you're cool and you're educated and I like hanging out with you, or a work friend or a sport friend. Or like, meet my other friends. It's not just, I experience this as a Swedish problem. It's not just a Swedish problem.
No, but you know what? Maybe because I guess this is a thought that never even crossed my mind when I was living in Poland. But I'm thinking now we have this experience, so we are a bit wiser to be on the other side. But maybe that can also be the effect of listening to these episodes we record about this expat experience, that those who don't have this experience or are already established in the place they are, then if you have any kind of, surplus, then maybe this is a really great idea to engage, to start going to expat meetings, because you always crave for, these locals, and to start engaging in some kind of the international meetups to really, welcome these other people in your country.
Let's move on to number 3, because we're well into this episode. It might be a longer one. Number 3, I call it expat relationships, as in living together but experiencing a separate reality. So in my case, my husband was the one who got recruited. We moved here. He's got a job. He's got to prove himself. Yada, yada, yada. He's very, very busy. Mm-hmm. I came in, I followed, and I take care of the kids, and I make sure that the family is okay. But then I have nothing. I don't have a job. I gave up my self-employment, or I would have to recreate it. Do I want to do this? I have to support my kids. We share a life, but we don't have the same reality. Mm-hmm. He lives a different reality to what I live. And in your case, your partner is Swedish. I remember, so I'm projecting and you will correct me here, but I remember when we didn't have kids yet and I followed my husband to France.
So it's his country of origin.
His country, right? I followed him to his country. Actually, for some point, I had a job and he didn't have a job because he was looking. But I would have this experience of having these micro frustrations here and there. And at some point, like, it's too much. And I'm like, oh, bloody French. Like, I remember being extremely angry with the French postal service. I hated them. And they were like, and I would come home and vent to my now husband. And all he would say is like, look at me. And he's like, "Mais chérie, this is La Poste. I do not understand why you are so upset. But it's clearly they've always been like that." So for him, it was clear. He never questioned it. He never had any expectations. And I came from a different country and I expected it to. And for me, they were not doing the basics of what they were hired to do.
Because you have such a broader experience of life, even when it comes to the postal service. This is the beauty of changing countries. You can have a different experience. You don't assume that where you were born, where you lived, is the only way that things should look like, yeah?
And I can imagine that for you, it could be, okay, so you now have a Swedish partner. And just because he's Swedish and he's more established here, he's helping you integrate more because he has this circle A of family and friends, and you're meeting more Swedes than I, for example, because we're both not Swedish.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at some point, you might be the only non-Swede in a group. And they will all be like, yeah, of course, like, and that's the Swedish way of doing it. You're like, maybe raising your hand or maybe not, but just thinking to yourself like, no, it's not. This is not the reality for everyone. This is the reality for you people, but not for me. I know that I had that with my husband and his French people. I'm like, actually, I have to disagree. And then you're the only one that's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, from my experience. And they would listen and they would be like, so like dumbfounded of, wait, what? And sometimes when it's too hard to digest that somebody, if they all fundamentally agree on one thing and I'm the only one not, they almost like ignored me. It's like, yeah, okay, but you're not French. And that was their explanation. And then it's like, end of story, move on to the next topic. It's like, no, wait, can we discuss this?
So I guess what you're saying is that, in a way, what you're saying is struggle doesn't end when you manage to get friends or partners from the country of the place you moved, because then your loneliness continues just in a different way, yeah? And I guess there is something to it. And cultural differences are real and the living experience is real. Again, Sweden example is very specific one because Sweden, especially nowadays with all that's happening in the world, because Sweden is a country that hasn't been in a war for over 200 years.
Yes.
And that this is doing something to Swedes, yeah? And, I admire this country. I chose it. I want to live here. I love being in Sweden. But my experience of Swedes is they are a bit privileged and they can be a bit blind. And then I really see
ignorant. Let's call it ignorant. Because they did well. It's it's understandable. Yeah. They did well by staying out of other people's messes.
Yeah. And
I'm from the country that created a whole lot of mess for everybody, and everybody got involved. And then everybody obviously had something to say about how Germany was supposed to be
happened
rebuilt.
to be in the middle, which never turned out good for us. So what I am experiencing often is, I would say find someone open-minded because otherwise you can really get very frustrated because we have a lot of discussions about just different perception of the same things. So the struggle doesn't end the second you find the local friends.
In my experience personally, with my traveling the world and with my friends, but also then professionally when I worked a lot as a designer with expats in their homes, it is also more of a woman's thing than a man's thing to adapt. And what I mean by that is the woman is, for the greater good of the family, of the relationship, willing to put herself back.
Willing or conditioned?
Willing or conditioned, exactly. So there is these power dynamics. We need to acknowledge them. So you are the trailing spouse, or you are, from your partner's friend's perspective, you are Elias's foreign girlfriend.
Who's making the effort to learn Swedish and will never be so fluent in catching jokes, so... Yeah,
so even how people refer to you might not be, oh, that's Natalia. They're like, no, it's Elias's foreign girlfriend. Right? So I, for myself, had to also teach my husband, my partner, when we come home, to tell him, your friends are lovely and I get it and blah, blah, blah. But this was really exhausting to me. And when a certain situation happens again, I know that you didn't realize, but this was really hard. And I either need you to step in and say, like, defend me. And no, but let's talk about this because there's somebody here who has a different experience. or to help me get out of it because I'm tired of being the only one.
And always making the stretch, making the effort. What we probably will not cover like very much in this episode, but another challenge, of course, of moving is the language. So I would say this is my experience that, for example, now my Swedish is much better, but when it wasn't, we could start talking to someone in the street. Doesn't happen often in Sweden, but sometimes happens. And they would immediately start speaking Swedish. And I would expect from my partner to switch to English so that I can be included.
Yes.
But he, for example, will not do it. And I will have to say it for myself, like, ha, 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 let's switch to English. And everyone, of course, apologize and switch to English. And then when I talked with him, he said, I thought it would be like just 2 sentences exchanged. And didn't see the problem. So again, this is something we are again as expats responsible for, to even once you have these friends or partners from the country, to still all the time advocate for yourself and, hey, it is new. I don't get it. I'm the only one. Take care of me.
Yes.
And this is very hard.
That is hard. That is exhausting, to be constantly the one advocating for yourself. And then I can tell you as a mom, being the one having to advocate for your kids. So we had a situation that my son got into a confrontation with other kids, and the other kid, so my kid got aggressed because the other kid felt aggressed, just the way how my son spoke to him. And then I realized, so it was, how it is like with 10-year-olds or 9-year-olds at the time. And there's like a lot of investigation happening, like what actually happened. All you see is that them fighting or starting to hit each other. Like, what is happening here? And my son then explained to me in French what was happening for him. The other kid explained in Swedish what was happening for him. And then I was like, I still couldn't see the problem. And I asked my son, I was like, how did you say that? Because he's French with a German mother speaking Swedish.
Yeah.
And when I want my kids to do something, when something is really important to me, I will on purpose not speak French the proper way how French would say it. I will use German grammar, as in very direct, do this, da, da, da. And he did the same thing. Something was really important to him, and he translated this very matter-of-fact way of how I speak. And then I had to explain to the teacher and to the parent of the other kid, my kid is not a little asshole. My kid
comes from a different background,
has a mother who speaks German, and he translated, right? And I realized that this comes across as an order.
Especially in Sweden, that has a very consent culture and a very non-direct way of communicating.
Exactly.
So so many challenges, so many minds you can stumble upon.
And then you're advocating not just for yourself, and it's exhausting, you're advocating for somebody else as well.
So I guess coming back to this compassion, look how many challenges you have as an immigrant moving to a country and trying to really make a living with meaningful connections around you. The moment you succeed, another problems emerge. So just be very, very kind to yourself. But also I would say, do the effort of learning about the culture, because it's not about the kids now, but what I learned in my Swedish course now is that when we speak Swedish, not with the Swedish melody, we come across as aggressive too for them. And how can you know that as an expat? You cannot. So really, if you can do the effort of learning a bit about the culture and the expectation of the country you come from.
And it's so funny that you say that, because so this is my 6th language, right? And then
not right. It's not. It is not a standard. You polyglot.
I like to say right when I'm thinking, just to get confirmation.
Of course, we all speak 6 languages.
But I have heard many, many times that, so when I meet you, for example, in a context, we speak English. And then yesterday at the meeting, she told me, so you heard me for the first time speaking Polish, right? Which is your mother tongue, but I'm a lot less confident. Even
though you were speaking so well yesterday.
But then you see this person from a different angle. And I've had this very often. So when I lived in the UK, I lived in a shared flat. And when my German friend would come over, so we didn't have a living room, but we had a living kitchen with couches there. And the kitchen would get empty very quickly. So it was just me and my German friend. And at some point, my British friend told me it's really hard to be in your company when the two of you are speaking German because all I hear is sh, k, t, p, and it feels like lashes. It's a very harsh language.
Very interesting,
right? And it's like, and you seem it seems like a different, like you're having this argument. I know that you're friends, but it sounds like an argument to me,
intense,
and it sounds intense. It's like I just don't want to spend my energy. I just want to spend time here. It's like. Interesting. And then when people hear me for the first time speaking French, and everybody's having this romanticized version of France, is so nice, blah, 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 and they hear me French, and like, oh, you sound so flirty and so nice. And usually you're this happy, energetic person, and all of a sudden you come across as so soft. I'm like, is it really me, or is it your projection of whatever you like? Just what you just said, right? The melody.
Yes.
Reminds you, and we have certain stereotypes in our heads.
That's very interesting. I think we mentioned that on some other episode. Yeah, are we the same people when we speak different languages? And I guess everyone has to answer for themselves. But I would say no.
I would say yes. Anyways, so I had 5 topics. We talked about 3 directly. The 4th one was the cultural conditioning of friendship, and I think that came up in all of them.
I feel so too.
So the last one is number 4 that it's missing, and I called it emotional processing and our nervous system. Being an expat and having this change of friendship dynamics literally does something to you, to your nervous system, the way you think, the way you feel. And then I recently read a book from I can't remember the title, but the guy is a neurosurgeon, and he explained, it was fascinating, that in countries where people live in more density and closer together, the immune system works differently than in people that live on the countryside and are exposed to less other people.
Germs, fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one is when you live, I think, I'm not sure if I got it 100% right, but I think it was like this. If you're living more isolated and have less social contacts, your immune system is trained to fight bacterial infection because you might not have somebody else close taking care of you. Whilst if you live in dense and very close to people and are exposed to a lot of different people and interactions, your immune system is antiviral instead of antibacterial. All I want to say is that this expat experience is so complex.
On so many levels.
Many levels that when you move and you're used to having a very wide circle, like dense circle of friends and seeing a lot of people, and all of a sudden you are more isolated, more lonely, spend more time alone, are not exposed to as many people, your body literally goes through a change that we've all heard about this, that people move and all of a sudden they gain weight or lose hair or get more infections. Like I'm constantly sick or having a bladder infection or like my go-to is to have a laryngitis. So it's like, oh, this thing, literally your body used to be more exposed, like let's say more antiviral, and it's not used to fight bacteria, right? These things happen. So you might feel out of sorts and not yourself. Because of the change of what is happening.
Yeah, and then add to that, different food, not knowing how the health system is working. And I guess you already covered some challenges for the nervous system before that. Everything is new, the language is new, the currency is new. So just acknowledge all that, because I think the world is creating this view that, we are all citizens of the world and it's so natural to move and live in a different place. Of course, everyone can do it. Most of us can do it nowadays, which is a great privilege, but it comes with a lot of struggles for you as well.
And it's so funny. So one advice that the doctor gave was to emphasize these micro connections, even though these people are not your friends as such. So go to the coffee shop and talk to the barista. Look at their name tag and say, reply like with their name, and they will look up. It's like, oh yeah, right. Have these micro. Go when you go to the supermarket. Don't go to the self checkout. Go to the cashier where there's a real person.
Get a human exchange.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can, in Sweden we don't have the option, but if you can, pay with cash rather than with the card.
Very.
It's also, like money is dirty, but it will feel more like your body will feel more like, oh, I'm having these interactions with other people.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Like a simple thing like that.
But I think these are really good advices for someone who just moved to another country. Yeah, like find your favorite coffee shop and go there often, because as you said, there is this research where you're being recognized by someone from your neighborhood. It does something to your sense of community and belonging.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a really good idea to just give yourself these little opportunities to feel connected.
This dog is a pain.
She's sitting on my lap now.
But she's so restless and so attention-seeking.
Still cute.
Yes. And one more thing that I wanted to say, there is such a thing as cultural intimacy styles. So the way that we are intimate, even with our friends, I'm talking like platonic love, right? But the way we get personal very quickly with the people that we know. We do crave intimacy, not just with a romantic or sexual partner, but just this
closeness,
mental, emotional, feeling seen and heard. And yes, I'm the one who nods and says hi to all the neighbors, but also the neighbors knowing my name and greeting me first, right? There is an
I think there's one dog craving closeness now. Yeah, and attention. You know how animals are amazing and getting attention. It's a new thing in my life. I have a cat now. So I live with a cat, let's put it this way. And I'm learning how ruthless animals are when they want attention. Yeah. I guess we can learn something from them.
It's like a kid. I swear to God, it's like a kid. Yeah. And she's in this age now where she's like, if she was a kid, she would go, no, all the time. Whatever you offer is not good enough, and she would say no just for no sake. So if you give her attention, she will run away and do something else. And then the moment you ignore her, she's like, but I want to sit on your lap.
But I think she calmed down a little bit already because she can sense we're talking about her.
Yes. Exactly. Anyways, let's stop talking about it. Let's finish this episode.
Animals are also a great way for connection, but we talked about it in the ecotherapy episode. So everything is connected.
What is the last thing if we want to round this up? We talked about so many pain points and be aware. And I hope that you, dear listener, feel seen and heard like, oh, yes, this is.
Exactly.
And I hope this helps.
Yeah, I would
say.
What
else can we say that for hope's sake?
For hope's sake, I would say that it is possible to make friends, to find close people when you move, that you are not alone. There are many people who are going through the same. But I really want to believe that being aware of how complex is this challenge and how many pitfalls you can meet on the way can help you be a bit more understanding for yourself and give yourself this time that you need to do it. So I guess in the end, this is what this episode was about. The challenges, of being an expat and trying to create this social circle. It is not easy. It's never easy. Even once you do it, another challenges appear. So just be aware of that, and let's hope that will make you feel more alone.
And one more thing, even though we've talked about all the things that are hard and they can't be diminished, or never let yourself be diminished. Somebody, but you chose this, and why don't complain? You wanted to move.
Also, of course, not everyone chose. You were the one who had the luxury of choosing.
Yeah. So when we are in transition, it means to face something unfamiliar. And when there is too much unfamiliarity, you can feel lost, and it's normal to feel lost.
And then you can even feel endangered because your basic sense of security is being, attacked.
And I want you to acknowledge that. But at the same time, don't buy into this story, into this narrative that you are now the lost person. You are in transition and some things are lost. You might not have access to that. You might not have access to other people or to yourself the way you used to be with your friends. But it doesn't mean that you all of a sudden this lost person. Just look to where is the stability. And there is a way of being in transition and still thriving. Know that there is these phases. First is the honeymoon, and then is the frustration, and then is adaptation, until you feel included. And you can be in this frustration phase with a certain topic, maybe with your friends right now, in a complete frustration because you can't find the people, or the people that you found and you had resonance with are not really real friends.
Or already planning they leave, they move to another country. Many things can happen.
Exactly. There's other things where you are thriving. Just remind yourself of that.
Yeah.
And just because things are intense, it doesn't mean that they are bad. We all know that the things that are the most intense now will be the things that make us grow and we'll be proud of later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's very hopeful what you're saying, and it will be very strange not to feel this discomfort and loneliness while changing a place where you live. And also, what we never ever remember when we're down, but often remember when we're up, nothing is forever. It's impossible to feel the same way throughout your whole life. So the tides will turn. However you feel now, you will not feel the same way in a few days, weeks, months. So let that be also very hopeful, especially in this change. Change needs time. Yeah. There is no other way than go through change than that.
And if you're in transition, it just means that you're currently in the learning space. And what that means, if you're right now in the learning space, it means that later on, you will be a more fuller, accomplished, developed you.
So level up.
Exactly. You're just in the process of leveling up.
Congratulations.
You're welcome. I think that's it. I think we can close off.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was good.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that this gave you some positive perspective on moving and facing these challenges.
Yes. I really hope that too. If you're listening to this and if you found us through Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever and this resonated with you, please share. Share with your other expat friends. Share with your local friends and tell them like, this is how it is.
This is what I need.
Can you please listen to it?
This is how I feel.
They said it.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes you understand.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, friend. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you.